Still broadcasting from the Civic Cypher Studios. Welcome back to the QR Code, where we share perspective, seek understanding, and shape outcomes. The man you are about to hear from is a man with the heart of a musician and the soul of a poet. He is the Q in the QR Code. He goes by the name of Q Ward.
And then he does that, and I'm supposed to go after him and try to think of something more fly to say about him, and I just refuse to try today because that was beautiful, and I can't do it. He is the R in the QR Code. He goes by the name Ramses Ja.
And we still need you to stick around because a little later on we're going to be talking about wrestling fans in Vegas chanting F Ice at a major wrestling event, and that feels kind of special. Happy to talk about that. We're going to have some dialogue. How do you define pretty? How do you define beautiful? And right now, normally we'd be doing Q Word's clapback, but I think that we're going to let this ride because we still have some more conversation to have with our brother, your brother, the world famous radio personality, Theo Gio, who's in the studio with us. And we're having some fun. We're recapping this cultural moment on the heels of Bad Bunny's Super Bowl halftime show. So, for those that missed the first part of the show, we were talking about just how that moment was such a moment of pride for the island of Puerto Rico. There have been a lot of people who have been able to celebrate Puerto Rico, but this particular version of celebrating the island, it felt special by all accounts. However, there was a group of people who took issue with this decision to have Bad Bunny, perform at the Super Bowl. And whereas you have never questioned your citizenship, why would you? That's such a weird thing to think about. You've never questioned your Americanness. That's never been a thing. There was a group of people in this country that did so. And they were so upset about Bad Bunny performing at the Super Bowl that there was even a show, like a counter program for the real American halftime show. So I could imagine how hurtful that might be and how dismissive that might feel. But, for our listeners and for us, for me and Q, talk to us about what that was like leading up to that, and maybe how that moment, or how it feels to know that there are people out there that somehow feel this way about Puerto Rico.
I think it's very foolish. Bad Bunny is Puerto Rican, right? Mm-hmm. And he's our artist, but it was everyone's moment. And I think they missed that.
Dang.
I think they missed that. Like, for anyone to dismiss, like, Puerto Rico has been part of the United States for over 100 years. We fought in every war since we became a part of the United States. Yeah. We've contributed to society, in all facets, from military to judicial,
pensions, politics,
you name it. Sotomayor was the first female, Latin judge, Supreme Court judge. So, like, we're contributors to society. Oh, yeah. We're just as American as everyone else, and there's no reason for you to feel the need to have another halftime show for what? Why?
Real quick, I think that Puerto Rico's been a part of America longer than Hawaii. And it's been a part of America longer than maybe Arizona too, if I'm not mistaken.
I think there's a couple. Yeah, there's a couple
just
states.
Wanted to float that.
Yeah,
but continue.
That is true. There is a couple states that Puerto Rico has been longer than part of the United States longer than.
Yeah.
So we have a deep heritage with the United States, and being connected and being a part of the United States. If you're born in Puerto Rico, you are a U.S. citizen. You can't vote for the presidency on the actual island, but you can vote on the mainland.
Yeah. I want to add something else too while you're answering. I also know from you that the United States, from your mom, that the United States has not always treated Puerto Rico and Puerto Ricans all that well. And I want you to, if you feel so inclined, to incorporate that into your response. And yet and still Puerto Rico's people still love and embrace this country. So please.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's 100% true. There's been testing in Puerto Rico as far as, they've done sterilization. They would sterilize the women in Puerto Rico to the point where they would give them shots and they didn't know what they were getting. They would go to the hospital. They would say it was mandatory. And this is done by the United States. And they made it so women can't produce any kids. And there was no kids in town. So schools literally shut down. They've done bombing tests on the island of Vieques, which is a small island off the coast of Puerto Rico. It's a part of Puerto Rico where radiation has leaked. In fact, for this last, invasion that I guess you could say into Venezuela, that was a staging point. So Puerto Rico has always been a major part of the United States, but it hasn't been treated well at all times by the United States. And bringing in soldiers too at the same time that can't speak the language to fight in your wars where they can't tell you no, they can't understand your directives, but we'll put them out on the front line and go out there and sacrifice for a country that doesn't respect you or treat you the same way.
But I bet they win a gold medal. They all American at that point. Now, real quick, I know we have just a little bit of time left, but what does it feel like when you see the president tweet that, what do you say, this is the worst Super Bowl halftime show, is absolutely terrible, one of the worst ever, makes no sense, an affront to the greatness of America. And then Jake Paul purposely turning off the halftime show, let's rally together, these big names. What does that feel like to a Puerto Rican in that moment, seeing the greatness of the island on the world stage?
It's very disrespectful, especially from someone like Jake Paul, who lives on the island of Puerto Rico. But he does it because he gets to evade paying federal taxes on the island of Puerto Rico. A lot of billionaires invest in Puerto Rico for that reason. They take over the land, and he's benefiting from that, but yet he's talking bad about the country when he's actually not paying federal taxes, which is what good citizens do.
Bam.
So he has no room to speak.
Well, thank you for giving us some insight into just how significant this moment is. It's obviously celebrated well beyond the borders of Puerto Rico and outside of New York, because a lot of New Yorkers, obviously that was a big moment for them, and Puerto Ricans around the country. But Latinos, and I think you said it, Q, you said it, human beings that just kind of understand that we're all brothers and sisters. People that didn't speak no Spanish was doing their best to dance along, and that's, I think, what that moment was about. So there's a reason why that moment felt so special, and I appreciate you taking the time to come on to my show. You have to have me on your show. But thank you for coming on my show and giving our listeners some insight into what that feels like. Now, we do have to shift gears a little bit, because it is now time to have some dialogue. And Q, I'm putting you on the spot. You're going first, and I need you to talk to me. How do you define pretty? How do you define beautiful?
You know, the great philosopher, the late, great Robin Harris once said that beauty is skin deep.
Okay.
But ugly is to the bone.
Ooh-wee.
And that was very profound to me. I'm not sure I know what he means, but I agree. You know what I mean?
Sure.
In all seriousness, however, beauty is not an easy thing to describe, because I think in most cases, you know, you're talking about a noun, a person, place, or thing, and we experience those things very differently, right? Our senses interact with those things very differently. You can meet a person, man or woman, that you think is very beautiful. Spend 5 minutes talking to them, and your brain will see them in a different way. Either it's heightened and they're the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, or you don't understand how anyone can be attracted to them, no matter how quote unquote pretty or attractive they are.
Sure.
So beauty beautiful and pretty can be synonyms. But I think pretty intentionally lacks depth. Like I've seen pretty people that weren't beautiful because there's one of my other senses has to be triggered for that to elevate to beauty. There has to be some interest beyond the shell that you were born into for that to be elevated to beautiful. We talked about recently the most beautiful things that we'd ever seen. And I talked about, my son. And I know that's not the expected answer from people for my son to be the most beautiful. Yeah. But that kid saved my life. The first time I saw myself smile after I don't know however many years was holding him. And I didn't catch it in real time. Someone took a picture of it and sent it to me. It's a beautiful picture. It's framed and it's in my house. And he knows it. He knows that picture is him saving his dad's life. So beautiful tends to tap into something more than just your eyesight. I lived on the island of Palawan in the Philippines in a little town called El Nido. And this woman who I rented a room from would make enough dinner to cater a wedding every day. And the first several times I ate dinner in her kitchen, I'd just get up, clean my plate and go back to my little hut. But one day I asked her, there wasn't enough people there for the amount of food that she was making. And she told me to just hang out. And after her kids finished eating, they did like I did. They got up and they cleaned their plates. They washed their hands and then they started making plates, which made me curious because there's no more guests. There's no one else left to eat. This woman didn't have enough space to house everyone, and she didn't have money to give to everyone. But her brother or someone in her family was a farmer, so she had plenty of food. So she would cook enough food so if anybody was hungry nearby, they could eat. That was beautiful to me, right? So I think the words that we use to describe beautiful has always, in my opinion, had a bit more depth than just the surface or just how something aesthetically presents itself to the world. There's always been something more. And that's nuance because you're talking about humans, you're talking about places, you're talking about flowers or art. And this could be a 2-hour conversation. So I'm going to shut up because I'll ramble trying to figure out how to take something that massive and shrink it down into an answer that satisfies this question.
Well, Theo Gio, you're up.
That was a good answer, Q.
It was good, right?
I will say something along the lines of pretty is surface, but beautiful is core. I think that's a major difference because, with time, all things fade with time, all things. But what's the core of something, that'll never change. And that's truly where the beauty lies. That's where you find it, in the soul of a person. For me, that's the difference between pretty, which is surface, and fades with time, versus beautiful, which is to the core, to the root.
I think that, obviously, it's been stated, the technical difference. But I think that this isn't such an interesting philosophical question. I agree with you, Q, that you could pontificate here. But one of the things that I know to be true about myself is that my idea of what is pretty has been pretty consistent throughout my life. But my idea of what is beautiful has changed with different chapters of my life. And it has expanded and it has grown. And beauty has a lot more flexibility, I think, because once upon a time, the most beautiful thing I've ever seen wouldn't have been my son, but once my son was born, I can't unsee that. It challenged me to try to see something more beautiful than the birth of my child. You know what I mean? And so the different chapters of your life, what's beautiful, it can grow and it can expand, perhaps to a degree that pretty cannot. Another thing, and I think that Q, you kind of touched on this, but it inspired the thought here. If I had no eyesight, if I was like a blind person, no vision, I would not know what pretty is, but I bet I would know what beautiful is. Does that make sense? So yeah,
makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking, and I didn't expect for this conversation to get this deep, but I think that when we hear words like pretty and beautiful, rightfully so, we associate them with the fair sex, we associate them with like sort of aesthetic things, and not really with moments, like you were alluding to, Q. And we weren't, growing up and just kind of using this language casually, pretty, beautiful. I think a lot of times we use them interchangeably. So I appreciate the definition, the strictest definition that you put out there, Gio, because you're right. You're absolutely right. Delineating kind of the aesthetic from sort of an all-encompassing feeling is the right way to understand what it is you're beholding, whether it be visually or otherwise, and perhaps even how to approach it. Because I think this is another point you made, Q, and it was well made. You might approach something or person that you believe to be pretty. You might approach this person or thing one way because you think they're pretty. Pretty things are meant to draw us in, absolutely. But you might have a different approach to something that's beautiful. And beautiful could be, like pretty could be a flower, and beautiful could be like a whole scene, a whole all-encompassing, like, okay, there's a stream, there's a mountain in the distance, there's a whole field. Pretty can be, for me, that would be like a young woman. Beautiful would be someone who has loved me, someone who has poured into me, someone where I know it's a safe space if I go there, and they can be aged, and that doesn't count against them. If anything, it might work in their favor if they have grays and wrinkles, and I know that they're going to pray for me if I need them to. That, I think, is probably a better way to, I guess, delineate the two terms. And again, I know which one I would want at the end of the day, because if I'm sick and I need somebody to take care of me, I want somebody who's going to do it with all their heart. You know what I mean? And, you said it best, Gio, that, pretty fades, but beauty is kind of in the heart and it kind of sticks with you. So I like this question more than I thought it would. So I'm glad we had this little chat. All right. So let's move on. Entertainment. That's where we are. Okay. That kind of took me out of it, man. I like that. All right. Wrestling fans chant F Ice at major event in Las Vegas. Okay. So... full disclosure, I'm not the biggest wrestling person. I know very little. I know you know more than I do, Gio. And then Q, I'm assuming or guessing you might know a little bit more than me. But again, as I said at the top of the show, this sort of felt like it felt unexpected for wrestling fans to be chanting F Ice. So let's get into the story. This is from NBC News. Fans at an all-elite wrestling match Wednesday night in Las Vegas broke out into anti-ice chants that briefly paused the pro wrestling match. At the AEW World Championship Eliminator match, which was being broadcast live on TBS and HBO Max, a loud and sustained cry against Immigration and Customs Enforcement of F Ice reverberated through the audience before the opening bell rang. The AEW Dynamite main event brought together a large crowd in Las Vegas, a major immigration destination for Latinos, where almost 35% of the population is Hispanic or Latino. The professional wrestling company has also attracted a larger Latino fan base in recent years by embracing Mexican luchadores and the Latino wrestling tradition. Reigning champion Maxwell Jacob Friedman, also known as MJF, looked shocked as the chant began, staring into the camera wide-eyed before scanning the crowd. Brody King in the opposite corner can be seen looking at the audience and nodding. King has been outspoken against ICE in the weeks leading up to the championship eliminator match. King, who is also the lead vocalist of the hardcore band God's Hate, collaborated with artists and a printing company to release t-shirts raising money for the Minnesota Rights Action Committee. The t-shirt features a photo of King wearing a ski mask and a shirt that says "Abolish ICE." The campaign raised nearly $59,000 to support Latino and Somali immigrant communities. In a post on X, King thanked fans who had made a purchase and finished the post by saying "F ICE." So Q, I want you to go first here. How does this hit you? Did you expect it? I certainly didn't. Maybe you did.
I've grown cynical or skeptic of solidarity and support at this point. So every time someone in a group says something out loud that I think it catches me off guard. Because we're at a time in history now where it's cooler to be a contrarian, right? If a group of people thinks it, even if I don't all the way disagree with it, I want to seem like the smartest person in the room. I'm the person that has this insight that nobody else has. So I'm going to go on one of these social media platforms and disagree with everybody else because I'm a free thinker and you all are sheep. It's kind of what the last 10 years has been like. So when something is obvious where we should collectively all feel the same way about it, I now don't expect anyone to agree with us. And the pre-compliance of so many corporations and organizations to this administration, long before they were required to, I think they still might not be required to pre-comply in the way that they so aggressively and gleefully did, has made me think that everywhere where there's some money being made, that group of people is anti-me. So anytime a large group of people chants something like that, it catches me off, but it catches me off guard, but in the best way, because I've just kind of gotten to that point where I don't expect anyone to align with us anymore. I've been let down aggressively and monumentally to where I don't expect there to be anybody to the left and right anymore when I look. And we just have to sojourn forward for those who are behind us and accept, all that comes with that. So pleasant surprise. This is not WWE, which is the larger wrestling league or platform or entertainment company where their leadership is very tied in with the current administration. I think the wife of the founder is in the cabinet, like Secretary of Education or something insane. So when I first heard wrestling crowd, that was my initial thought, like, wow, that crowd. But this is a smaller organization, so kudos to them.
Okay, all right. Jill.
I would say I think you can't close your eyes anymore to what's going on. I think it's invasive. What's happening with ICE, immigration, the way even U.S. citizens are being treated, how people are just the treatment, the lack of due process. I think you cannot close your eyes to it anymore. I think it's everywhere. It's something that I think those in this current administration wish that people could close their eyes to, but you can't unsee it anymore. Yeah. And it's in I don't want to say infecting, but it's spreading. And when they're having protests overseas for things that are happening over here, it's growing bigger.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that's a great thing, that people need to know about this. People need to feel this. Even if it doesn't impact you directly at this particular moment, there's potential that it may affect you or your neighbor, or any industry in particular. So I think that's a monumental and great thing, that where you wouldn't expect it, it's going. Yeah. It's spreading.
I think you bring up a good point too, because what this administration has been ignoring, they can't ignore forever. And what this administration has been ignoring, the rest of the world has been watching very closely. And so as the resentment grows to this administration, to ICE, to all the stuff that is problematic with Donald Trump, them paying attention to the people, not the administration itself, because the administration is incompetent and morally bankrupt. I was reading a story where France decided that, you know, for all their businesses and all this sort of stuff, they're gonna create their own version of Google so they can have their own emails insulated from this American corporate interest. And they felt like it's a national security thing. And I think, I forget which other countries followed suit, but a lot of countries are following suit. Tons of countries are abandoning the dollar as the standard, and they're adopting, like, you know, Chinese currency or Russian currency or whatever as their monetary standard. And of course, with all the tariffs and so forth, a lot of the countries around the world are looking at the United States like the United States is not our friend. We need to become independent of the United States, which caused the United States to lose status on the world stage, which caused the United States to have less favorable, you know, terms when it comes to trade, negotiating, that sort of thing. And it's people in the crowds at wrestling stadiums chanting stuff like this that lets folks overseas know, okay, this administration is not just problematic when it comes to the government. The population doesn't agree with this administration, and they do what they can to protect their interests. But as you mentioned, there are also protests that are in support of the people on the ground. And one of the things that Q and I, we talk about this all the time. There are so many people that come here and they have a green card, and they come here and they have some formal paperwork relationship with the United States government. I think there's 5 levels of immigration. Like, one is just you just walked over the border, and the 5th is you're a full citizen. And there's a ton of levels in between: green card, you know, permanent resident, you know, asylum seeker, all this sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. And this administration is just, everybody that's not a citizen is gone. And as you mentioned, there's no due process there. It doesn't matter if you're trying to do it the right way. It doesn't matter if you're an upstanding citizen, you're making money, paying taxes, you have a relationship with the government, you're at some point in the process. This government has just everyone gone because they whipped up this anger and this hate from one base of the population, and they think that by delivering on it, it's going to protect this nation's long-term interests. And I think you pointed it out quite well, that it doesn't. And again, the fact that the people on the ground at a wrestling match in Las Vegas are pointing out just how problematic the most visible arm of this government is, I think that speaks volumes, not just to the moment. I think it empowers people who are aligned in their vision of what this country should be and what this world should be. I think that these people that chanted that are the same type of people that would celebrate Bad Bunny's halftime show. I think there's more people on this side than that side, if the ratings are anything to go by, because I think the Turning Point event was less than 6 million and the Super Bowls was 127 million, something like that. So I'm good with where we are, but we do have work to do, so let's keep doing it. With that in mind, I would like to thank you so much, Theo Gio, the world famous radio personality, the DJ, and everything above, for coming and hanging out on the show, man. I wish we'd done this a long time ago, but I think this was the right time to do it. Before you go, shout out your social media so people can tap in with you.
At TIOGIO, that's pretty much everything. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. At TIOGIO. Thank you, Q. Thank you, Rams. Just my brothers. I love you.
We love you too.
My brother, for sure.
All right, and that's going to do it for us here at the QR Code. Today's show was produced by Chris Thompson. If you have some thoughts to share, use the red microphone talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app. And while you're there, hit subscribe and download all of our episodes. Also, follow us on all social media at Civic Cypher. I'm your host, Ramses Ja, on all social media. Q is at Civic Cypher on all platforms. And join us next time as we share our news with our voice from our perspective right here on the QR Code. Peace.